Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Grubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists.
It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Canine Detection Collaborative podcast. I'm Robin Grubel, and I'm here with Stacy Barnett.
Hello.
And Crystal Wing.
Hi there.
And we have, in our episode about the rehash of Muscatatuck, right, we talked about speed drills. And I think in some of the subsequent episodes, we've also been talking about speed drills. And thanks to Craig Schultz from the Animal Behavioral Consortium for putting on this really great presentation about them, right, at Muscatatuck. And so we've had several people reach out to us and say, hey, can you give us more information on speed drills and how do you actually use them? So in this episode, we're going to talk about how we use speed drills in our training. And we're actually going to put together a graphic, which is the free graphic for June, around speed drills. And so we'd like to thank Craig for inspiring this whole discussion, right? Because I think they're a very, very valuable tool in our training.
And anytime you get the chance to listen to him, he's such a dynamic speaker. It was really, it was enjoyable listening to him. So even though he went really science and geeky, he still also brought in enough kind of down to earth, and it met everybody at everyone's level.
And we'll include the link to his website out in the show notes. So make sure to check that out. I know we use speed drills a lot, especially when we're teaching seminars and with the 3 puppies, right? I'm at a point where I'm starting to incorporate their train final response is really solid. They're on their odor. And so it helps me actually address all of the D's by using speed drills.
Thanks for not saying how many. Oh, dang it, Stacy.
There's 6.
I was so proud of Robin, and then here comes Stacy, back door.
I had to. I'm so sorry.
Did you? I don't think you did.
It just came out. Oh, I know.
Wah, wah.
So they're great. They're awesome for me for little tiny things to do. You know, oh my God, I don't have a half an hour to go set up a problem, but I can pull the dog out of a kennel, set up a couple speed drills, and boom, 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 we've got some brain work for the day. So use them for all sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start with something that I want to change, though, and nothing against Craig, because I think everyone's been calling him this for such a long time, but you know where I come from. I love obedience. And then everybody goes, oh, what? And because it's a game, everything is a game. And so can we change drills to games? Because then it just feels so much more fun. And I feel like the people we've been talking to and showing these different speed games to, they do have that connotation of sometimes it takes longer to set them up than it does to even run them.
Right.
But it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a game. It's not like a drill sergeant. I'm making you do the thing. It should be so much fun for the trainer and the dog. So can we call it games? And no offense to anyone that's been calling it drills for all these years. Is that wrong?
I love it.
I do too. I vote yes.
Yes.
So,
all right. So we put that out in the universe and maybe it will catch on.
Yeah. We all vote yes. Love
it. and our little kernel of the universe anyway. No,
so at least 3 of us will call them games.
Right. And I think that that's actually a really important distinction because the human mental brain, right? You say a drill. And so they think, you know, those of us who
I think military.
Yeah. Or type A personality.
When you say drill. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Over and over and over again. And so it's muscle memory, which is actually the definition of a drill. But we all know that the dogs have to have fun doing it. So if we call them speed games, maybe the trainers and handlers will have more fun while learning something. What a concept.
And I also don't drill it in because I look at it as like with Radish. With her, I just introduced the speed games. And if I ask her to go back to the same thing over and over, that is a drill and it's punishing to her and to me. And then we get all kinds of problems kind of caked in there. And so instead I had, 4 or 5 different odors placed about 9 feet apart. And I would, let her go to the first one and it was boom, butt down. It was great fun, great play. We got to the next one and it was the same thing. At 4 odors, she had the best time of her life. And she was introduced to 4 new odors. She had fast sits. She had lots of play. That was a great game. There was no drilling to that. I wasn't going to the same thing over and over and over again. We had great fun. And like you said, it was so fast to set up. I did it right out here in your yard because I'm visiting Robin right now for maybe like the whole month of June, living in donkey heaven.
Welcome to the Wayward Home for Dog Trainers.
Yes.
Because Stacy's here too.
Yay! Yay, we're all in Iowa.
Said nobody ever. But anyway.
Hey, field of dreams,
Yeah, I guess.
You built the canine census and here we come.
We do a tangent about the Wayward Home for Dog Trainers here. Just a little story. So there I was packing up after the summit. I'm in Western Illinois and realizing I have to be in Michigan next Saturday and thinking, okay, I'm going to drive home to New Jersey and then drive to Michigan. And then I'm like, wait, geography. Like Illinois is right next to Iowa. So I called up Robin. I'm like, can I camp in your driveway for a week? She's like, well, when? I'm like, no.
Of course now.
That was my tangent. That's why we're all in Iowa.
And then it was so great because she's telling Robin this and Robin's telling me because we're sitting next to each other at the counter working on projects and such. And then Stacy messages me, I'm coming to Iowa. And I'm like, wow. I kind of already knew, but yay. I already did the happy dance. Imagine the Snoopy dance.
I love the emphasis on games from the motivation part of it, because I think, if we start thinking about drill, I think a lot of times people focus on the outcome of the dog at the hide or whatever, the dog at the odor. And we're the benefit of a lot of this is really focusing on the fun side of it, right? Focusing on the motivation. And I think that doesn't necessarily always come through.
And the hand-in-hand thing on the speed games is rate of reinforcement, right? Because as Craig was talking about, you have an app for that, which is what is your rate of reinforcement? And when you're doing speed drills, they're not like Crystal was saying, she had them 9 feet apart. There's actually a space of time in between running the first one and then marking and reinforcing to set yourself up to get to the second one. And it's that whole concept of how much you're paying, how long you're paying, so that as soon as you get done paying and your dog kind of checks back in, right? Because we also have to manage arousal levels with this. And then sending your dog in to do the repetition because, practice is great, but perfect practice is what we need.
Yep.
And so it also helps you as a trainer work on your mechanics.
That's what I love the most. I could have a very clear criteria and I knew exactly what I was looking for timing. And my rate of reinforcement was so high. I spent more time in my reinforcement than I did even in the game part of it. But it's all like that big cycle. I think we talked about that at our very first webinar. And it was just the idea that there's like your antecedent behavior consequence kind of idea, the ABCs of training. And so there's a loop. There's no stopping point. It's just this continuous circle. So it's the setup of the arousal for Radish is what I worked on. And then I sent her to the first one. She slammed her butt down. And then it was huge party. And it was party, party, party. And then realizing that her arousal is way too high. So now I get the chance to bring the arousal back down with some like start button behavior kind of stuff and bring her back down to the planet Earth. I don't know what planet she was on, but she was there. So I brought her back down to Earth and then using that speed game to work on that arousal piece because the train final response was pretty solid. So it doesn't even have to be that it's right at the odor that I'm working on, but it could be just getting her ready for the next search and knowing that that big party is coming. How can you keep your mind together? She's 14 months old. That's a lot to hold together for that little brain.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is about, speed games. I'm changing my whole vernacular and I love it. Is that you can actually take any concept that you want to train and you can parse that down into a small piece and turn it into a speed game. So Craig was talking about when he gave his presentation, he was talking about this, helping some teams certify for trailing, right? And I guess they were trying to do like a 10-turn track. So what he ended up doing was he broke those down into like a single turn and then reward and a single turn and then reward. So it was kind of like, so what I took away from that is, what are you trying to achieve with this overall piece of training? And can you break that down into a small piece and have a really high rate of reinforcement? So what I did was I actually took the concept of it and used it to prepare Brava for her summit trial that we just finished, which by the way
was awesome.
Overall.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Woohoo!
Yeah, her second title. I was so proud of her. And so what I did was I would set, because again, in Summit, we're searching huge areas, right? With not a lot of odor. But to prepare for the trial, I didn't want to go out and just replicate those searches because that's just practicing. That's not training, that's practicing. And so what I did instead was I had, a hide that was kind of reverse of her normal searching approach. So I had a, ground hides because she likes to go up. So I would do a ground hide in a very, very small area. And when she hit it, I chucked the ball at her, which is not a reinforcer that I can actually use in a trial. But what it did was I was able to give her A plus reinforcer, right? Because she loves that ball, and play with a ball and really kind of, help her to feel motivated about that hide. And it was just a short search that I was able to then really highly reinforce and then go to kind of the next small search. And of course I was smart and I stopped at 3 of them, but I had that really nice high rate of reinforcement and I was able to keep that motivation high. And that was a speed game for us.
I love what you said. I stopped at 3.
Yes.
That's so many people, including myself. One more.
Don't train until it's ugly.
When it's that perfect repetition.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's that perfect repetition. Be done on that perfect repetition. Big game after that. Let that party set in. And then you can just think next time, I just be so proud of yourself instead of feeling like you've missed out. You didn't miss out. You just did so great. I'm so proud of you, Stacy.
Oh my God. Well, what was happening was I was searching. Well, first of all, the first time I went out and I did 4 and I contacted Robin. I'm like, 4 was ugly. And she's like, don't train till it's ugly. And I'm like, I love that. So the next time I went out, I had a little Robin on my shoulder. And little Robin said, you're at 3, don't train till it's ugly. And I stopped.
That's kind of scary.
Just so you know, there's a little Robin on my shoulder when I'm searching.
So Stacy has a little Robin and I have a little Tim, because my little Tim I got when I was teaching 20 years ago. And it was, you can teach it, you can ignore it, you can manage it. So it's kind of funny because actually that is pretty much what Robin always kind of says as well. So I've got a Tim, you've got a Robin. We can all have somebody little on our shoulder.
Well,
don't train till it's ugly. And it was good.
It is good. And because what happens, the question I've started asking myself, which is behind the whole concept of don't train till it's ugly. Am I training? Am I doing the next repetition because it makes me feel good as a trainer? Or is it because the dog actually needs to learn another skill?
Well, sometimes it's because it's already set out. It's just there. So we got to do it because I already set it out.
Or I only have 3 more days to train until the trial.
Yes.
But at the same time.
Oh, those things make me have brain cramps.
Yes.
Because it goes back to perfect training leads to perfect performance.
Yeah.
And
that's why I set timers now too. That behavioral timer has been a godsend for me. because it tells me when my time is up. It also, I can put it in my pocket and I can put it on random intervals. And so I use that a lot for, making sure that I'm doing stuff at different times. So I'm not, because I'm a human, I'm patterned. So those are just little tricks too that I try to use.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, you may only have 3 more days till your trial. But if your dog isn't trained already and you only have 3 days till your trial, you
can't fix it.
That's a different issue.
Right.
Yeah. That's a different issue. Prepping for a trial or a certification, right? That's not the time to hone your skills.
Mm-hmm.
That's the time to hone your motivation and make sure that your dog has the right priorities in place. But if the dog doesn't have the skills, that's a different issue.
Correct. And the speed drills, we go back to them. People are like, well, I don't need to do speed drills because, my dog's certified or I'm competing at a certain level. But, some of the funnest stuff can happen during speed drills. I can use the speed drills to address, I spend a lot of time with Nico addressing latency.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes up, he puts his nose right next to it and really trying to get that fast bark because I can put him on land for cadaver work. And he has a 3 to 5 second latency when he barks, which is still bigger than I'd like, but whatever. It's something always for us to work on. But I take him and I put him on the rubble pile. And because his footing is now not solid, right? Because now my 80-pound dog has to figure out where are all 4 feet and he's got to bark and all of that sort of stuff. My latency gets longer. And so I use the speed drills, for example, for him to always kind of work on that latency piece because actually we have a fun game that if we're working on duration of bark, he can stay at the bark or stay at the speed drill and do his barking thing. And then I do what Crystal fondly calls the creeper. And I start creeping towards him. And it's like I'm going to get you I'm just creeping towards you. And he goes nuts for that and starts barking even faster because he knows that that's part of the signal of, hey, I'm coming to give you your toy. So I just am super excited about being able to use, and then for the puppies with the speed games.
But I guess I'm confused, Robin. I thought that Nico was advanced and I thought that you were like a master trainer legend, so why are you doing foundations? That just doesn't make any sense. Oh my God. I wish people could see the face you just made. Oh,
I love it. Oh my God. Foundations.
That face was the best ever. My sarcasm came through, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Robin. Answer that one.
Without knifing me.
No knifing. Well, there's this little meme that floats around on Facebook that says, the advanced or the professional works on the foundations and the novice works on the advanced skills. And I really, really strongly believe our whole entire search chain or whatever chain of behavior you're coming back to is always down. If you slice them thinner, the behavior's thinner, you're always down to like the one fundamental thing. And so even with the puppies right now, oh my gosh, sit is everything. We sit for breakfast, we sit for dinner, we do sit stays all of the time. We're sitting on platforms, we're sitting because sitting is the default behavior for the trained final response. And if we're doing hunt tests, they have to spend a lot of time in sit with self-control on the other end.
And you're conditioning so much with those baby pups. They are just really getting a great workout. And that's something I think people don't recognize. You really can't add that duration to it
until they have the
because
muscles.
It is so much muscle. Yeah, it's so much muscle. And then if you allow them to practice the sloppy sits, and there's just so much involved in that even.
Yeah. Oh my God. The bane of my existence, the sloppy sit at this point. I think about some of that stuff with what we can work on even in speed drills or speed games.
Speed games.
Speed games
Yep.
with your odor and then play.
I have a game that I actually just taught. Well, I got a little inspired by Craig's talk, and I was writing the lectures for my new class, which is NW 435 Supercharged Formula for Focus Results or something. Anyway, that's kind of the name of it. And I was talking a lot about in week 1 clarity, and so I had a drill game. I had a game that I created back in the beginning of the year of containers to create clarity. And this whole concept just kind of came together in that lecture. And there's this one game that I created that really represents clarity with containers, because containers look really easy, like either containers, either you're doing like an ORT or you're just doing a container search. They look super easy because it's just pick one, right? And what you find is that the dog really has kind of an advanced discrimination type of exercise that they have to do. And it is a series of a lot of these small decisions. So what I wanted to do to help to enhance the clarity is I take these cardboard literature mailers that we use for our ORTs, and I ended up tenting those heavily, the open tenting. So they were kind of they had this big gap. And I put a hide in one, and then I set a fan because I wanted that odor from that hot box to blow and get trapped in all of the neighboring cold boxes. And what I did is I just did 6 boxes, right? Because it's a speed game, 6 boxes. And when I ran my advanced dog, my summit, 2-time summit titled dog, right? So now I can say 2-time summit titled dog. My 2-time summit titled dog, although she did have 1 summit title when I did this, on this speed game, and her ability to understand where that source was really coming from skyrocketed in just several repetitions. I'm going to put a little plug out here, by the way, guys. I'm doing a webinar through Fenzi Dog Sports Academy on Thursday, June 16th, and that is going to be on container issues and what to do with your container issues. So I just want to put that out there.
Nice.
FenziDogSportsAcademy.com, and it's Thursday, June 16th. So just a little plug. Anyway, so I used that drill, and it was amazing how even a very advanced dog, it just really helped her clarity. So it just shows that those foundations, you're never done with them.
No,
right?
You're not. And containers or ORT, odor recognition training, right? In my world, which I think is the same in your world.
We have odor recognition test. Yeah,
right.
We have passed that trial.
But it's all containers, whether it's paint cans or boxes or whatever, is, one of those things where it can be very boring and frustrating for the trainer or handler to train. So I think we have to, with the blowing odor and the fan, very clever.
Yeah. Well, because it's one of those things where it just gets trapped in the neighboring box.
Right.
And the dog realizes, there's odor here, but it's not source.
Right. And so they learn to swim upstream.
Exactly. They learn how to dismiss.
To get odor.
They learn how to dismiss. Yeah. And when you have just a few boxes and you can do those rapid repetitions.
Right.
You get a lot of training done in a very short time.
Yeah. So I think that the speed games are something that you can kind of look like an ORT, but aren't really, because with the speed games, your odor is actually readily available. And to a certain extent, they're almost visual. And then you run into the occasional dog like Little Miss Radish, who is like, oh, no, I can see it. So I'm just going to alert, sit further away. So Crystal and I ended up spending a little bit of time, and it was like, oh, well, just don't cut the grass. Here's tall grass. Yeah, so my yard's a little bit long right now, so it's great for hiding little speed drills. And the interesting thing that Crystal did, which was very clever, is because Crystal, I'll just tell the story.
What?
Well, Radish,
go ahead.
Radish is pink, right? She's a really pink dog. So if Crystal starts her downwind, as soon as Radish gets into odor, she sits. And so we're working on location stuff to keep her driving into source. But we still need to work on the fast sit. And so you can make it visual, but not smell by putting your odor upwind.
Yeah, the wind placement's been so important.
Right. So you could send the dog. I mean, she visually sees it. She knows she has to go sniff it. So she goes in, she sniffs it, and then lo and behold, it's odor. So she sits.
And the nice thing is we've created this pattern too. So my plan is I'm going to use the speed drills to work on her pinkness to get her more red, so that I can go across. And it's not always going to be this way, but I can take out that one little piece right now of, yes, it's visual, but you have to sniff it. And then later on, I'll be able to move to the point that the wind's coming right at her face and she'll still source all the way to it. So I know that that's something that we're teaching currently. And it's an end goal that I can also use the speed drills for. And I do agree with Craig. I really feel like these games that we're playing, these little speed games, we can really parse out all those little pieces and figure out what the criteria is. Something he did say that I keep thinking about is that quality over quantity. And that went back to when Stacy said that she stopped at 3, even though she had more. But even like if you're doing I was introduced as like a north, south, east, west drill. What is that called? You have another name for it?
4 corners.
4 corners. Okay. And so, both ways you can kind of hear what the way it is. The source is in the center. You send the dog from one direction and then you go 90 degrees over and do it again. And then 90 degrees until you make it all the way around.
And you play in between each one.
And the play is so important. That's where most of the time is spent, is in that play session.
Yes.
Retrievers, memory.
Yeah.
Now, I know, for instance, with Brava, who has a memory, probably hers is stronger than an elephant, man. She's all memory. She remembers locations really well. So if you have a dog like that, would you, in doing that drill, would you kind of reposition them, maybe spin them around? Like, how would you?
No, it's very visual. It's all about, trained final response is obedience.
True.
So that's all you're doing. It's just a quick obedience type drill.
Yeah.
And you're giving them obedience game. And so you're just giving them that immediate feedback. And it's just supposed to be a fun, we're just working on, maybe the criteria is a fast sit or a fast down or a fast bark.
It doesn't matter about their memory.
No, really it doesn't. It's very visual. They know it's there. It's not about really even finding the odor for that part of the game. So the 4 corners is just about, getting that piece of the criteria that you want to work on.
It's just another split. That's perfect.
Yes, with immediate feedback. And that immediate feedback is a lot of fun. And it creates that behavioral momentum. So it's the idea that if they sit fast this time, if the sit is what you're, desiring, then on the next one, they're probably going to sit even faster. And so it's just creating that momentum and creating that powerful trained final response we want.
And so then we start having what happens if we've got the little block, right? Because remember, if you're using blocks or boxes or whatever, we're teaching a context setting cue, which you actually have to fade at some point. Or, you've got, for us cadaver people, you've got suet cages set out because it's got all your cadaver stuff in it so the dogs can't hurt your training material. So you have to fade all those cues, but this is you've got a visual cue and a olfaction cue for the dog. But then, okay, what happens if your dog runs in and sniffs it and doesn't do the desired behavior at criteria? And, you have a couple of options. So you can do a reset. I always think about the whole concept of, am I paying enough to get the animal to play the stupid game that I want it to play? because if I am not, and it runs off to do something else, I have a bigger problem than odor.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And it just comes down to the fact that because it is a game, and if you really focus on that reinforcement, that you can address that, right?
Right.
Because a lot of times I think people put out these big odor problems, right? The single hide, and the dog's like, this is really hard. And that is really interesting way over there.
Right. Or, oh my gosh, there's donkey poop over there, which is like way more interesting than odor because mom can't compete with donkey poop.
I feel attacked.
And I know Robin and I know we kind of disagreed on something, and I thought we kind of saw things differently. And when we were doing the speed drill with two different dogs, so one was a German Shepherd that was supposed to bark as soon as they got there. And instead they did a, the airy bark. And so it was an immediate reset. So, and when we say reset, we're not taking a leash and yanking the dog away. It's just go to the dog with all the love in your heart. Yes. With all the love in your heart. And you're just taking the dog back to your reset point. It's not an emotion. It's totally neutral. It's not, I'm angry at the dog because it didn't do the thing. The dog did the thing. It just wasn't to the criteria that we wanted. So it's just give a second chance. So the dog had the airy bark, and it was more of an arousal thing. And you'll find that a lot with your pointy-eared dogs. When they get really overly excited, they do a lot of the airy barks first. And so it gave them just a second to chill down just a little and then send in for the next time. And sure enough, really powerful, beautiful bark. And it's not about waiting for 2 or 3 or 4 barks. It's just the very first powerful bark that doesn't have all the airy sound, and reward that like crazy. It's a big game. You're trying to get, 15, 30 rewards in a minute. So when you're thinking about that, that's what the rate of reinforcement is, because the rate of reinforcement is what's going to kind of seal the deal. It's what's going to make the dog want to do it. But you have to be aware when you're sending them in for the next one, if they're higher than a kite, you have to be aware of that, because that's where Radish kind of did a thing. And I know Robin said, I'd put her up, because that can really work well for dogs. If you feel that they understand the concept and they just are not doing what they're supposed to do. So that's our form of kind of, saying, look, here's your timeout. But I didn't feel it was the case, because I've seen this with her when we're in the field doing kind of bird dog stuff or sendaways right now. If I have the ball, she really does get too high too fast. And I'm working on a lot of arousal layering, arousal games, that sort of thing, to kind of teach her that she can go super high and she can come super low. And I'm doing that outside of odor. So that's all stuff that we play outside of. So I knew when she went to that and she didn't sit, she just turned around and stared at me frozen in a stand. I know she wants that ball. There is no question in my mind. That dog wants that ball. And so I cued sit, and she just couldn't. She was just frozen. And so again, with all the love of my heart, I walked over and I took her by the collar, and we went a little further away, and we just sat there for a little bit. And I felt her little chest and I felt her little heartbeat. Oh my gosh. It was going so fast. It was like a continuous. And so once it slowed down a little, and then we did a little start button game, she could do a hand touch, she could do a collar give. Well, now I sent her again. And then this time she went right to it, and she sat before I could even cue the sit. I mean, it was just like a swan dive in. So it's really important to know your dog. And I trust Robin just to the 100th degree. And on that one, I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to go against you a little. And it's great that we can have trainers that we admire, and then we can also discuss, and then we can go, okay, I see what you're seeing. So that was a really nice session.
And it's been a really big learning experience for me, Crystal, because with all of the bite sport stuff, you guys deal with arousal levels a lot. Yeah, and just a little. And, I think in the detection dog world, it's not something that we really notice and take stock in, that it's not that the dog is being purposefully disobedient and not doing the behavior that we want them to do. I see this a lot in Nico, right? He's like, I want to do what you're asking me to, but oh my gosh, I'm vapor locked.
Just can't.
And I just can't.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that we actually do see a lot of arousal issues on the detection side, on the sport side. Because if we think about it, when we're competing, it's timed.
Right.
There's an intense amount of arousal from the dog and the handler coming off that start line. And when you're working under the clock, right? And when you're working multiple hides, sometimes there's quite a few within a short amount of time. I mean, I had one search this weekend. We had a range of 3 to 7 hides, and we had 3 minutes, and we had a very large search area. So you've got to really be on top of that arousal in between your hides. And I think that's something that comes out a lot on the sports side in our training, because that arousal can really get in the way of the dog's ability. We definitely see a lot of that. So it's just very apparent is kind of my point there.
Yeah, just up to the handlers to start seeing it in their dogs. And they just need to learn how to read their dog. And then I know we kind of keep going back to that in kind of a roundabout way. And I think a lot of that too, I mean, I've learned how to read dogs by playing with dogs and just observing so much of that observation. That's why I loved when Holly Bouchard was talking about that focusing of the camera. You know, in the beginning, you can only focus on one part. And then as you become more experienced, you can kind of widen that lens. And I use that reference a lot. I love that visual. And this is just another example of that.
Yeah. I was thinking about the speed games, and I really encourage people to video, not just the dog when they're doing speed games, but to video themselves interacting with the dog, because you may not realize that you're actually training a sequence of behaviors.
Yeah.
And so you wonder, well, why is my dog pop off source? Or why is my dog look back to me all of the time when it's at odor, if you want this nice, pretty sit and stare, right? And on the spree drills, if you're doing 4 corners, or if you've got them in a line or whatever, you can go back and you can now watch the video and look at your timing on what are you actually reinforcing, because your dog is going to do the behavior that you're reinforcing, whether you meant it to or not.
And that's where I think it's hard too, because even the person we were helping last week, she even said, even with the video, she probably wouldn't have noticed the timing issue because she didn't have anyone, that had fresh eyes. And so I think that's also something that's difficult. And it's about finding that person to help, or that mentor, or just showing your video to others. And I know there's also, like in the cadaver world, then it's like, well, wait, can I have video out there that's showing, something that is not desirable? And, with that, it's just a matter of, that's why we have training logs. And we're able to say, this was the problem we ran into, and this is how we fixed that problem, and this is what we worked on. And so I think people get in such I need a better expression than what just came to my mind. Such a cramp in. Yeah, oof, that was close. I had to put my school edit on because I'm in summer mode. But they just get in such a cramp about it. And it's like, stop. You need to train your dog and stop worrying about this other stuff, when the most important thing is, how can I get the advice from the right people? And the best way to do that is to share the video. It's not like you're putting it out there on like a Facebook Live. That's not what you're doing.
Right. And some of it, yes, you video it. You need to be able to share it with, and this is one of the things of finding the right trainers and mentors. Oh, that sounds like another episode. But anyway, the whole concept of saying, hey, well, you did this, so your dog does that. Or if you want your dog to change its behavior, you have to change your behavior first, which is like such an epitome for a lot of relationship issues, but whatever. Yeah, follow me for more life hacks. So the thing to think about is, that's when you go back and you watch those videos and you say, okay, this is what the dog's doing, but what am I doing that my dog may be cueing off of? Or the dog did this, and right behind that, I did XYZ, which gets this behavior.
And that is why I love speed games, because look how fast these are. You get to see all of that in a really fast amount of time. It's not like you have to watch a 45-minute search, and have to, piece out all of that. You get to see it all. So you can watch it the first time as just everything together, watch it a second time to watch your dog, and watch it a third time to watch yourself. Then you'll really have it. And how much time have you invested? Maybe 10 minutes. And you've totally upped your training game.
You're right, because by slicing the little piece down, right, you're just focusing, for instance, on the final response. That's all you have to pay attention to. Because a lot of times when we're doing these larger searches, we're having to pay attention to so many different things. We have to pay attention to change of behavior. Has the dog covered the search area? All these different things. Is the dog focused? How does the dog indicate? Did the dog pass the odor? I mean, the list goes on and on. But if you do a speed game, there's one thing you have to pay attention to. And you're less likely to miss something. So, I mean, I was watching a video the other day, and one of my students, love this student, right? Absolutely love this student, rewarded the dog. And I'm like, did you notice that the dog lifted their foot and put the foot on the box right before you gave them the cookie? And they're like, oh, I didn't see that. I'm like, yeah, we just pay the dog for using the foot on the box, so
Whoops.
Exactly.
I
So
hate that.
it's so easy to do. So by doing a speed game, you're slicing it to such a small piece that you don't have to pay attention to a whole lot.
Yeah. And I was just thinking too, Stacy, so that the focusing part, this could very easily be a great chance for you to learn your dog's body language and odor.
Yep.
So depending on how you have the wind, how strong the odor is. And so you can really read how your dog changes. And granted, it's visual and they know it's there, but this can be the first step to really watching your dog. And when you watch, so what do you guys look for when you look for any sort of changes? Like if you were to tell someone what's the very first thing that you would start to study, what would it be?
There's you look for, the first thing you look for is that head snap, right? People always look for that. That's kind of the first thing that people look for. The brain cramp right here. Okay. Because
But she asked first.
Right. Okay. So this morning, someone asked in my forum, she said, my dog is subtle. And I'm like, your dog just needs confidence, and your dog needs clarity and understanding what they're doing. So your dog needs to build that confidence. Speed games, and I even mentioned this in my forum, speed games, I didn't call it games at that point because we had to change vernacular. I think I called it a speed ball. So speed games are actually how you build that confidence in a lot of ways. Because your dog, if you have this subtle dog, and in sports, we have a lot of these. We have dogs with this really low confidence that's like, look at my mini Aussie. Crystal, you set hides for him last night. He rocked it.
I could have cried.
Basement, goes down these like open set of wooden stairs.
Yeah.
She said these two tough hides, and he's working, right? And he wasn't subtle at all. I mean, you could see him working odor. But when I first started this dog, he really was subtle. What you have to do is you have to build confidence in how they're working. And if you set out such an easy, basic puzzle, and you're trying to figure out how to read your dog because your dog is subtle, and you set out that basic puzzle to your point, right? You get that wind going just that right way, setting it up kind of the way you did, Crystal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you want to watch your dog with that change of behavior, your dog is going to be more confident in what they're doing. And you're going to see a more obvious change of behavior. So on one side, you learn to read your dog. And on the other side, your dog becomes more confident in what they're doing. And so therefore, they're going to be less subtle and easier to read.
So one of the things I also want people to be very cognizant about the fact of when you're doing speed games, if you ask your dog to show you more than once, I'm going to come off your shoulder and whack you on the head. We don't, that's not part of what you're doing in a speed game. You want that fast initial behavior change or train final response that you're looking for. Don't ask for the show me's. Don't ask for the trick pony stuff. Because in my opinion, and I see this a lot, is once the dog's done the train final response, the handler's like, well, show me again. And they're asking for all of these nose pokes and everything, or touch it with a paw. And the dog's like, well, okay, that wasn't right. How about this? And then you start getting all of these superstitious behaviors. That's not the purpose of a speed game.
They'll also come up short and they start to guess, right?
Yes. Stop it.
Yeah, I've seen that where you ask for a re-indication multiple times. That dog was precise initially is now 6 inches away.
Right.
So if you want to teach your dog how to guess, this is how you do it. So
Correct.
Now we've given you the training plan for teaching guessing.
Or it's a way of teaching your dog how to indicate when you tell them to indicate, which is a really great way to have a false alert.
Right.
Right.
So, yes.
So follow us for more how-to.
Very bad way. So think about that. And, if we get involved in the whole, oh my gosh, look at how precise my dog is. And I really, that's more about the handler or the trainer than it is about training the dog. So for me, the speed drills, when I start setting up my criteria for what am I working on in my speed drills or speed games.
Games. Yeah.
Sorry.
Good job. I know. How many years of speed drills? Like 20 years? That's going to be hard to go from drills to games. But I appreciate you trying and that you like it.
I do. And I actually have a very specific criteria that I'm working on and I want to shift. And especially with my experienced dogs, it tends to be the same hole that I'm always trying to shore up just because of something that else I've reinforced the bad thing. Okay, a 3-second bark instead of a 1-second bark. Okay, I'll take it. In my world, too many times. And so then I have matching law kicking me in the patootie. So think about that when you're setting up your speed drills. This is a very, very specific, fine slice of behavior that you're trying to modify. It's not this big, huge, long thing.
Right.
So I'm going to go back and pick on you guys. I've heard Stacy say a head snap. So to kind of give me some more to my question that I asked, what do you look for body language when you're teaching somebody? What do you look for and kind of try to focus on to help them see when their dog is in odor, especially for the subtle dogs?
Yeah. Well, that's the initial, that's the first change of behavior that I think people see anytime, right? I mean, when you start to really read your dog, you see a whole lot more than that. But I remember being a beginner and thinking oh, a head snap, right?
Uh-huh.
And that was kind of my first indication that my dog was an odor. And then later on, I learned, hey, they're going to do a head snap on novel odor potentially too. So that was a really good piece of information for me. What I try to teach people that, when I see a dog, when they're in odor, I say, pay attention. Is the dog kind of magnetized in one part of your search area, or are they just searching kind of randomly? So I kind of tell them that. And I also teach them it's kind of like sometimes when they're searching and they're in odor, they almost look like they're surfing, like they're a little head surfing the air currents. That's what I try to teach them.
I love that visual. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the listen to them sniffing. When I hear that sniffing frequency change, and then you get those blowouts, and then sometimes it can be dust, so it's not a always, but it's things that you really start to notice. But those blowouts, and then maybe they take their head a little bit away from the odor and they come back into it, and you hear that sniffing. Oh, I'm addicted to that sniffing sound. I don't know. It's the little things in life that I get so excited by.
With why he searches with his mouth open, and when he gets an odor, the mouth closes.
Yes, that's a great one too.
Mm-hmm. I've started playing a game. I was talking to one of the law enforcement handlers I was training with the other day, because we have the tendency as humans to look for the gross body movements out of the dog. And so I told him the game that I have now started playing with my dog, I don't care which dog I'm working, is that I need to be able to call the exact millisecond that the dog makes the decision to do the trained final response, because that means I'm training my eyeball to recognize every single one of those little changes of behavior, whether it's the tail or the ear set or the sniffing or the pace or whatever. Thank you, Steve White, for that whole concept on how to look at all these things differently from 18 years ago. then it also helps me be like, that's odor. I don't even need to ask somebody to confirm. I know what it is because I've gotten all of the stuff before. And in my world, a typical indication that I'm on a distractor is a paw up, which is typically an animal or something else that it's not what I want. So, that's a really other thing is, you put distractors out, you video both of them, not in speed games. So you can video
your distractors out or diversions out. I forget.
Diversions. You put diversions out. So then you video your dog doing both, and then you go back and catalog the differences and the similarities between the two. Who was talking about that just recently? And they had a fabulous way for doing it. Darn it. I'll have to think about that. Oh, I think it was Craig. Yeah, it was Craig. Because he was talking about the two lists, right? But anyway.
I was going to just quote, going back to the speed games, although he called it a speed drill, he said he could fix anything with a speed drill.
Yes.
Right? And this is kind of what we're talking about today, is taking that, what thing are you trying to work on? That tiny, tiny thing, like bring down to that little core concept. And can you turn that into a game? That's what I loved.
I think that's a great place to stop, because that was a very good way to wrap up. What are you trying to fix and how can you turn it into a game?
Tiny, tiny piece.
Pieces.
Make it little, make it tiny.
So
make it speedy.
And the cool part is we get to do all of these speed games. We're going to share quite a few ideas in our freebies this month. So that's going to be exciting. So some of these things are kind of visual. Well, they are. And so look for our freebies on caninedetectioncollaborative.com. That's K and the number 9.
And also we are doing a roundtable discussion where you guys get to submit your questions or ideas on what you want us to talk about. We're actually doing that on July 7th. $20 to tune in. And to be perfectly honest, this is how we're helping fund the editing and all the rest of the stuff that you have to have when you do a podcast. So we want to hear from you on what you want to hear.
It's not free?
That one's not free.
No.
No. The podcast isn't free.
Yeah, that's something that's not free.
Listen to the podcast for free, but it's
right.
Free.
Yeah, it costs us quite a bit to keep it going, but we do it because we love you guys.
And we actually, it's kind of fun with all of the interesting comments and questions that we get back, which actually makes us think hard. It makes our brains hurt.
And all the positive reinforcement and clicks and likes. We really appreciate you all. And always feel free to come to our Instagram and our Facebook and show us some love and tell us, that you're listening to it and what you're thinking and, what you've learned from it. And all of that stuff means a lot to us. And we really appreciate you for that.
Yes.
Although I still like to believe that no one's listening to me because, well...
Nice try.
Go to our website and you can get the tickets there, right? So it's caninedetectioncollaborative.com and you can sign up there, and it is going to be recorded. So if you can't make it, and you want to listen to the roundtable, sign up, you'll get the recording. And again, the link to the thing to submit questions ahead of time, the form there, just click on that. You can submit a question.
Right. It's in the registration form. You can click on the little jot form and it'll take you out and fill it out. And we will combine them or put them in the queue, and you will have some opportunity to ask questions during the roundtable, but we're going to give priority to those who submitted early because you give us time to think. So
we appreciate time to think.
We do. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Canine Detection Collaborative.
We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to caninedetectioncollaborative.com. That's K9 detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.